Good morning, class. We'd like to welcome you here to First Baptist Church in Pelzer. And we are going to be continuing our study of Growing Up Kids God's Way. And the Bible gives us many wonderful promises and helps along the way as parents. God says that He'll never leave us nor forsake us. And today we are going to study the character quality of patience. I was reading this morning in Psalms 40 verse 1, and David, the psalmist, says that he waited patiently for the Lord, and the Lord heard his cry. And I feel like this is a character quality that I know I can work on, and hopefully we can all work on to influence our own children and the next generation in a greater way. So thank you all for joining us here and by the internet.
Thanks for everyone showing up and watching online, and hit the subscribe button, and we can get notices of when our next class is. Welcome to come by in person too. I want to finish up the last couple of thoughts from last week, where we was talking on the subject of cautiousness, and I don't want to rehash the whole thing because we've got a lot to talk about today, but other areas of teaching our children to use caution is when they're tempted. Oftentimes their peers will ask them questions like, how do you know it's bad? Or, how do you know there's something wrong with this unless you try it? So these are things that you need to, as we raise our children up, teach our kids, this is what you don't do. Fall into that trap. Where they'll say, we'll try this out, but we'll stop before it gets too long too far into it. Or they'll say, go ahead, don't be a fraidy cat. You've heard that. So then, this will be our secret. Nobody will know. Anytime you have something like that being said to you, you need to definitely do like Joseph did. He fled. You don't have to stick around and answer their questions. So we should use caution and teach our children the same areas of what is good and bad for them with TV programming. We need to show examples of that ourselves. We shouldn't be just kind of sitting around watching TV sitcoms and stuff like that, because basically we're going to be entertaining Hollywood's agenda, which is to further break down the family and teach values opposite of God. So on the TV programming, music, what type of music are we allowing our children to listen to? What kind of music do we listen to? Is it ones that support biblical values or worldly values, and going after the bling bling and all these things? We have to make sure that we have them understanding what Hollywood's teaching and Nashville's teaching is not going to be what God is wanting us to be taught. So Hollywood and Nashville, two of the main mediums of which these undervalued, unbiblical values come through, is going to influence our children's values themselves. Now, as we tell our child, go up and kind of watch the TV while I'm doing this, fixing dinner. Well, that's indoctrination that they're getting. So we need to make sure we don't allow for them to fall into this trap. So we have to use caution in that. They're formulating their value system in the beginning of their life.
I was going to say real fast, you jogged my memory. Instead of saying, why don't you go over there and watch TV, you can say, hey, why don't you come in the kitchen with Mommy and let me show you how to cook this, so they can be learning a life skill with you, or let me show you how to clean up and put the dishes away, so that they don't grow up like handicapped or something. They need to learn life skills.
Yeah, plus they might be having some wholesome topic or something like that on one of these programs, but is the person who's giving this wholesome topic someone that's of the biblical value system that we want to espouse to? For example, I've gone into people's homes before, and they're having on the Ellen show, or whatever. I call her the Ellen Degenerate. That's more suitable for her name and her lifestyle. I mean, here you got a woman that's a lesbian, married to another woman, and our kids are sitting underneath that, and then we're on the one hand saying, when you grow up and marry a nice, godly Christian husband to your daughter or to your son, saying, well, you need to marry a nice Christian wife, you know. But then they're seeing this dichotomy here. So these things are undercutting our value system that we're teaching our kids. It's actually teaching Satan's kingdom instead. So developing character traits of cautiousness will help children avoid many pitfalls and tragedies of life. It's better to teach it right the first time. Otherwise, you might get a second chance of raising them a second time with their kids. Too often times that happens. But today's topic is on the importance of patience. But wait, there's more. Little pun there. The character quality of patience is essential for true happiness and joy of life and success. Teaching our children that the character quality of patience provides them the following areas of protection. Keeps them from getting into sexual trouble, thereby jeopardizing their ability to make the right choice for God's marriage partner for them. A guy and a girl don't make the right decisions in dating. They go too far, lack of patience. They accomplish that which is supposed to be done for the marriage bed only, and then they, in the process of dating to see who it is that they are wanting to marry in God's will, now they have to marry that person, at least the way they used to get in the old days. They say, well, for the sake of the kids, we got to get married. Nowadays, they say, well, for the sake of our reputation or whatever, we just have it boarded quietly over here. It'll be our secret. You know, the whole thing along with the cautiousness. So these are all things that, without patience and contentment and doing things God's timing and so forth, that's going to create a situation of somebody's going to have to pay the price, whether the unborn child or the marriage rushed in because we didn't make things at the proper timing, due to lack of patience, jeopardizing the ability to get God's perfect spouse for us. And so being patient will keep our children from growing up and buying things in debt and getting in debt and buying on credit. For example, they say, well, I like this car here. It's a really nice 2020 Mustang. Well, I'll just get you a 2000 Mustang. That way you don't have to pay payments. Maybe pay cash for it. Then you don't have to pay liability and collision and comprehension because the bank requires it, you're paying interest. And stuff like that. So being patiently and coupled with contentment will allow us to make choices that are not going to enslave us due to overextending ourselves. And then proper time management is another thing. Patiently exercising a scheduled life. If we as parents are sitting around on Facebook, for example, for hours and hours, and oh, I gotta get you to the doctor's real quick. So you rush out the door, throw the kid in the car, strap him up, and you're riding down through the 35 zone, and the police pulls you over. Okay, now you just set the precedence for your child that not being patient and time management and so forth like that is gonna be what they're gonna do. They're gonna grow up and jump in the car, gotta go to work, gotta go flip the burgers, they get stopped. So those are things that will cause car wrecks, maybe cause them to die prematurely, maybe get quadriplegic or something like that, or get, obviously with tickets come higher priced insurance and court costs and all that stuff. So today's topic of patience has all these multifaceted benefits. So it's also people that aren't patient, they also have a higher rate of ulcers, blood pressure problems, and so forth. Because all these things are like a domino effect. If we're not using time management, financial management, waiting for those things, and then moving when we're supposed to in those areas, then we will find life is going to be a lot more stressful, and then we're going to be probably not eating right because we don't have the time to sit there and cut up a salad and eat all the good things we're supposed to. We'll go to McDonald's and all this stuff, and wasting money and eating bad stuff, which is going to further give us high blood pressure. So utilizing the character of contentment will assist us with our children in experiencing patience. So it's almost like, are you half married or are you whole married? Are you half saved or are you whole saved? We can't have like patience without contentment and without all these other character qualities, orderliness and all the other ones that we've spoken about in the past. So patience is learning how to wait contently for the maturity of time to accomplish the following. So waiting for the maturity of it. Like who wants to have a premature baby? Like it, 26 weeks. We just gotta get it. Go ahead and have a C-section. Pull it out. Oh man, it's underdeveloped. But that's the way we are in other decisions. So don't expect any different results. So if we do things in the right, proper timing and patience, then desires, goals, dreams, and wants will be more suitable and better for us, such as like marriage and children, the goals of education and career. If you jump to career, then you may not finish your education. If you want dreams and so forth like that fulfilled, like I'd like to tour the world, but you're only 20. How are you going to tour the world? Except you go in the military. That way you get to tour all around. But if we jump all these things and go on these little Aspie trips of going here and there, like a drifter, some people do that. They'll visit all these continents and live off the nature or whatever. Those are all things that are not essential. But proper dreams would be best fulfilled when we do them in God's timing and being patiently waiting for it. Even fitting into this topic of patience would be a ministry opportunity. Sometimes you'll see a pastor that comes to a church, like there was one in Piedmont, when it was a pastor. They finally got one. The other pastor finally left, to their good. But they finally got one in, and he had been previously a Sunday school teacher. And he came in and built the church up. He was doing some good things for it. Then that they're needing another pastor again. They come to find out that this pastor got his training, so to speak, and then he actually went back to the church he came from because that pastor went to a bigger church in Greer. So this pastor went to the church there and then took it. So it's almost like, okay, you're moving up in society, so to speak, in career and all like that. But meanwhile, the other church that he left is without a pastor, so they had to keep, start the process all over. So advancing ourselves may be good, but we have to see, is it helping this church? Could they do better with somebody else? Or am I better off to be staying with this church and building it up? And anyway, I think he short-circuited God's plan on it. So patience, even in ministry, is good. So the idea of exercising patience means that you must wait, thus increasing the time between the start of something and its finished product, the desired end. Waiting is not what we want. We haven't. I coined this phrase here. Maybe some other people thought of it too, but a microwave society. I said that to somebody and said, we have a microwave society. I said, what do you mean? Well, basically what we want to do is have our plan, get it, boom, and it's done. Instead of patiently waiting for it, like the baby in the womb, you have to patiently wait 9 months, So we must teach our children to discern when a God-ordained roadblock is placed before them. And that's to attempt a way to achieve God's will and not their will for X, Y, Z, whatever it may be. And then oftentimes our children will follow our pattern. If we're used to boxing God into working a deal with God, saying, if you do this, I'll stop doing this. Or if you get me through this problem, then I'll do this. So we try to put God in a little box and ignore his attempts to tap the brakes on what we're trying to do. Sometimes what we're trying to do is looking like, this is what I know we need to do. And you go full forward with it. And God's trying to throw roadblocks and stop sticks out, and we're just riding on flats. And then we look back a year later, decade later, and thinking, why did I do that? Well, you're impatient. We're all like that. topic's about today, so we need to try to curtail that, yield to God's will. And as a result, our children, when they are seeing this pattern of not being patient when they reach puberty, as I mentioned, and we'll be needing to have taught them what is love, what is God's desire for marriage, what is God's sexual ordained picture for the future and that type of thing. So when they get older, then this area of sexual gratification is more fulfilled in the marriage. Outside of marriage, it leaves people feeling dirty and then premature on timing of things, and then we have to, there's forgiveness for all that, but then it's kind of like the scars are there, or the hardships are there, even more so. So in the process of all this, we have pitfalls there that we can prevent them from falling into premature children. Premature in the sense that they're before marriage. And so these children, if they're brought up in that situation, being born outside of wedlock and all that stuff, then they're most likely going to be raised up in an environment where they're not going to have the godly teaching more so. Because if you start something out in a wrong fashion, even though it's a good thing, having children is a good thing, but if you have it outside of, in the wrong context of when it should be considered right, then they're being brought up feeling odd and out of place. And that type of thing. So it's more work, in other words, to do things out of patience, out of timing, than in timing. So the marriage bed is actually blessed, it says. Paul says that the marriage bed is holy and undefiled. So we need to give place for our children in these areas of teaching them, preparing them so that when they have these children, it's not going to set them up to be little pagans. As we've been studying all these previous months, in the child's first 18 months of his life is when it's going to be formulating this value system. You think, what's a 12-month-old man? Or what's a 18-month-old man? Well, it's being set a pattern. Even a mother who's just birthed a baby, you take that baby and put it in her arms, that baby knows instantly that that's her mother. Or put it in his father's hands, and he detects it, but immediately a stranger comes by at church and says, "Oh, let me hold your baby." The baby doesn't recognize that. Why? Because it's already formulated this value system, and it starts crying because it wants its mother or father. So it is being taught and trained at that point. So all these things that we're teaching them has to be in the right timing, context, patience, built all into this. So when the child gets older, it'll be able to live a life of patience and carry on those values. Jesus said, "Ask, seek, and knock," in Matthew 7:7. So when we ask, seek, and knock, the idea is not, "Dear Jesus, I want this. It's not here yet." Oh, call call the pizza guy. We don't want to sit there and do it ourselves. We want it now. So we have to wait. Abraham was promised to have a land flowing with milk and honey. Did he ever get it? No. Did Israel ever get it? Not in its entirety. So it takes time and patience, and it won't be until the millennial reign that finally Israel will have the entire kingdom. So some things might take a whole lifetime or even beyond. But we have to be faithful, be patient, and wait. So some areas affected by not having patience would be impatiently waiting, wanting something now instead of wanting to save up, would be leading people to purchase things on credit. So this is kind of like a little bit more broadening out understanding of it. Buying things on cash causes people to pay less for it. So if you go to a store, probably not Walmart, but some little store that a small business has, and the owner's got something out, maybe a suit, not like belts or someplace, but some small business. I'm thinking like an Indian clothing shop. There's like one in Greenville. You go in there, if you have cash, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, I can mark the price down." But if you go in there with credit, then you're going to buy less. You're going to be able to buy less. So then the people with cash, when they make a purchase, then you might not have the money to buy that right now. So if you have a strict idea of just buying on cash, you think, well, this is going to cost me $500. So I'm thinking probably $50 a week, about 10 weeks to save. Well, at the end of about 8 weeks, you might be looking at that thing that you're wanting, and think, well, you need that anyway. So then if you buy things on the spur though, because you have the credit, and you'll buy it in the future, so to speak, on payments, then maybe in 8 or 9 weeks you're thinking, why not buy this? I just need it. It doesn't fit me now, or whatever. Like Heather, she's gone down a size or two. So if she buys something like today, next 2 months from now, it might not be the right size.
I was going to say, God says He's made everything beautiful in His time in Ecclesiastes, and there was these 2 sisters that decided that they were going to just take their parents' car out when they were gone from the house. I guess they had a second car there, and so they got the key and went and drove it out down the road and got in a wreck, and both of the sisters died. And this was a couple years ago. Their funeral was at a church on Highway 81 in Anderson here, in Anderson County, I think it was. That's just an example of how it's a good thing to get a driver's license when you're old enough and mature enough to handle it, but it's a bad thing if you do something out of God's timetable.
Yeah. And also buying like with cash stays within God's word. It says in Proverbs 22:7, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So if you come in with cash, you walk up with a product. The deal's done. You walk in with a card, buy something, they have your money, you have your product, but then third party, you're paying them, and then you become a servant to them. So when buying on credit though, the buyer has to be satisfactorily proven, I mean it's been statistically proven, that they will spend 12 to 18% more using credit than with cash. So if you want to buy a nice dress suit, you go into Belk's or someplace and you see it, and if you just got cash, you think, well, I got $100 here to spend. Let me see what's on the $100 rack or less. And you see one over here, you got a credit card, and it's like $118. You think, oh, okay, well, I have that much credit still available, so I'm going to buy that. Well, you just spent 18% more. If you multiply that out over the course of days and weeks and months and years, that 18% over a period of a year or two, let's say you spend $10,000, what would have been cash, then you've now spent $1,800 more, but you don't have enough money to give to church. Okay. So these things here add up. So that statistic was done by Dun and Bradstreet. It's averaged between 12 to 18% more. And I'd actually seen that statistic too when we was taking credit cards. The merchant terminal company would send us the information, all like that. And it says that one of the benefits of taking credit cards is that your customer will spend on average 14% more. It sounds good for the seller, but it's not good for the buyer. So best thing to do is just patiently wait, collect the money, cash, and then buy it that way. It's a win-win situation. Or what you could do is you got $100 that you had earmarked for buying a nice dress suit, for example. Just wait till it goes on sale. Maybe we'll out of season. Or go to the thrift store. Like for our 25th anniversary, we finally got everything put together. We went down to Bradenton. That's where we had our honeymoon yet. So we thought, we'll go down there and have a 25th wedding anniversary. We had it set up with the place where we went to. The pastor's son is actually now the pastor down there. So we said, hey, can you do a second, like a wedding reenactment? So he said we could do that. So I was able to wear my old wedding suit. Heather had hers preserved, and so we didn't want to unbox it and everything. So we went down there without a wedding dress, and then we went to a Goodwill store, and she found one for $43. Beautiful, but and a veil too. So The impatient thing would have been, well, the buying things without, you know, yeah, well, we'll just buy another $800 dress, you know, it's a special occasion. Anyway, you can do what you want, but those are just things that I feel like is better exercise of patience, money, time, and all these things. And remember, our kids are watching this pattern, and what we do in a minimal degree, they'll do in excess. Okay.
Real quick, my parents never had credit cards, and I'm one of 7 kids.